All right, so welcome everyone. We're diving deep today into some pretty interesting stuff. We've got a whole bunch of news articles all about the 2024 election results.
Oh, wow.
And it's not just about who won, right? I mean, obviously, that's big news, but it's more about like the ripple effects. Like we're seeing some pretty unexpected impacts on things like tech, global stuff. It's a lot to unpack.
Absolutely. And I think some of the sources you've got here really point to that.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You point to some really big changes that are, could be huge.
Totally. So first off, let's talk about the voters.
Yeah.
Like who actually went for Trump this time? It's kind of wild because the data is showing strong support from, get this, Hispanic men.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, more younger voters are on board.
Okay.
And like a massive surge from the working class. It's like if you look at those old assumptions about Trump's base, this just throws it all out the window.
It really does. It really makes you rethink things. And I think, when we look at it a little deeper, we could attribute some of this to like anxieties about the economy.
Oh, for sure.
Especially in industries that have been hit hard by, by all the trade stuff going on. And one source, actually, they highlight this decline in manufacturing jobs in the Midwest.
Right.
And that region totally swung for Trump, like massively.
Yeah.
So there's that. But then you also have this cultural element,
Oh, yeah.
where some voters they really connect with Trump's whole message on things like immigration and national identity, all that.
It makes you wonder, right? Like, is this just a temporary thing or is this like a whole new direction for American politics? If it is, I mean, what kind of policies are we going to see?
Yeah.
What does this mean for both parties? I mean, it's a lot.
Huge questions. And it's way too early to say for sure, but we got to keep an eye on this. See how these voting patterns change, going forward.
And that kind of leads us to another kind of spicy topic. Trump and Putin. I mean, their relationship was a whole thing during the first time.
Yeah.
And now it seems like we're back in that same arena. Putin, like immediately he congratulated Trump. And then there are all these, phone calls between them that nobody knows about.
Yeah.
It's definitely raising some eyebrows.
I can imagine.
And there's even this quote in one of the articles, Putin's praising Trump's manly response.
Really?
To that assassination attempt back in July. It's fueling a lot of speculation,
Oh, yeah.
about what's really going on between them.
Yeah.
And what it all means for global politics. I mean, it's a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you think about Ukraine, still going on.
Oh, for sure.
What could this closer relationship, what could it mean for U.S. foreign policy? Could it push the U.S. in a whole different direction? It's really complicated. I mean, if they get closer, we could see the U.S. soften its stance on Russia.
Okay.
And that could totally change the balance of power in Europe.
Wow.
And even beyond. So yeah, we got to watch this one carefully.
Definitely. Okay, let's shift gears for a second and talk about someone who's kind of merging into GOP, Elise Stefanik. She seems like she might have a pretty big role in this new administration.
Yeah.
And the articles, they mentioned a bunch of possibilities, like a cabinet position, maybe even UN ambassador.
Oh, wow.
So what do you think? Her potential rise, what does that tell us about the power dynamics within the Republicans?
It's interesting, right? Because she's pretty young and she's come up through the ranks really fast.
Yeah.
So it's like maybe there's this shift happening towards a newer generation of leadership.
Okay.
And the sources also talk about how she's got a lot of support from women, which is a demographic the GOP's had trouble with lately. So
Right.
It's going to be fascinating to see what she does with that influence, especially on things like education and healthcare. Those are big priorities for her, apparently.
Speaking of big impacts, let's talk about something that really jumped out at me. Tesla hitting $1 trillion. Like their market cap just went through the roof. And one article, it connects this to Elon Musk supporting Trump.
Interesting.
And the possibility of, some pretty favorable regulations for Tesla coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, it makes sense.
It's a huge jump. And the article specifically mentions like maybe they'll relax some environmental regulations and maybe some tax breaks for electric vehicles. And that, plus how well Tesla's already doing, it's made investors super optimistic. They even compared Tesla's earnings multiple, which is like how much investors will pay for each dollar they earn, to NVIDIA's.
Sure.
And NVIDIA's doing pretty well. So that just shows how much faith people have in Tesla's future.
Yeah.
But do you think this Tesla thing can last? I mean, Trump's policies, they could change the whole tech industry, not just Tesla.
It's hard to say. It could go either way. Like in the short term, a Trump administration might be good for companies like Tesla. But the long game, who knows? So you've got things like trade war.
Oh, yeah.
And just, the whole global market could get really unpredictable.
Right.
So yeah, those things could easily wipe out any gains they make early on.
For sure. Okay, last but not least, let's talk about something that always seems to be a bit of a hot button issue. Trump and the Fed. He hasn't exactly been quiet about his, let's say, disagreements with the Fed in the past.
Oh yeah, he's been pretty vocal.
And it looks like he's ready to make some changes. They're talking about replacing Jerome Powell and maybe even messing with interest rates. That's got to be a bit worrying, right?
It is. Because the Fed needs to be independent, to keep the economy stable.
Yeah.
And if the White House starts interfering with the Fed, things could get messy. You could see inflation going crazy, the stock market going haywire, maybe even a recession.
So where does that leave us? Like a whole new political landscape, this complicated relationship with Putin is back, and the economy feels kind of shaky with this new administration. It's a lot to digest.
It really is. And it's a make or break time, the choices they make in the next 4 years, they'll have consequences for a long time.
Absolutely. So after hearing all this, I'm curious, what are your predictions for the next 4 years, and how do you think all of this will impact you? I mean, your life, your work, everything. And remember, this is just the tip of the iceberg. We've only scratched the surface. So keep digging, stay informed, and most importantly, stay engaged. What happens next, it's being decided right now. And understanding all of this, it matters. You're a part of it.